Hey everybody, welcome to Aniki, the podcast about anime with two brothers. I'm Ben.
And I'm snowed in.
You're snowed in. That doesn't really relate to the show at all.
No, but I mean, the fact that we have like 4 inches of snow in Seattle. Like, the city's dead. Like, we actually all died.
I'm virused in. Does that count?
Kind of. Have you seen you've seen Snowpiercer, right? It's basically Seattle right now.
The original Korean movie?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I found it okay.
It had some interesting ideas.
The ending sucked, but
you'll get that. So what have you been up to since last we spoke?
I did watch the entire Wagner's Ring Cycle, because that's what I decided to do with my life.
All of it? You finished it?
Yeah.
And how did you find it?
I mean, it is quite good.
Quite good, quite long.
It is long. So my version was 15 hours so this was a concert version, which isn't to say that there wasn't acting. Things were still acted out. But a lot of the scenes where there's just like music and action happens, they play the piece of music, but they don't repeat it while the action happens. They just tell you what happens. So I think they were able to cut about 15 to 30 minutes out of each act. And when you add all that together, it means I saved about 5 hours.
Well, good. Did you also watch that synopsis video I sent you?
I did. Pretty solid. Fairly accurate.
Poor Brunhilde.
Yeah, Brunhilde does not have the best of it. Well, none of them really have the best of it, but you know.
Well, it's because they all had to renounce love or something to have a lump of gold.
Generally. Rheingold, please.
Rheingold?
Rheingold, as the nymphs are quick to remind you.
Well, those nymphs, I think, are the real villain of the piece.
I mean, they kind of are.
They don't care.
They kind of make fun of an ugly dwarf, and it all goes downhill from there.
Some good life lessons to be gleaned from that.
Don't mock ugly dwarves.
Indeed. Have you done anything else?
I watched Infinity Train, not to be confused with Mugen Train. Very different.
Very different.
Very different.
And how was it?
It's excellent. Like, it's A+. A+++.
And you still need to look into that.
Alfie's freaking essay on why he wants the Red Ryder BB gun.
Yeah.
With that thing in the stock that sells time. It's that good. It's A+++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++ highly recommend. This is the Cartoon Network original / HBO Max original.
That's an interesting combo.
Well, it was originally going to be on HBO Max, and HBO Max has the rights to like all of Cartoon Network's stuff. I don't know how that happened, but they were originally going to make Mugen Train just for HBO Max, but something fell through. Like the service wasn't ready in time because HBO Max kind of sucks and just kind of stopped sucking because WB was just like, have all of our movies.
And what's the pitch for Infinity Train?
I just watch it.
I can't just watch it. You gotta.
Nah, you guys just watch it.
Well, I'm gonna go look at the Wikipedia thing real quick.
Don't do that.
Okay, I won't.
Just go watch it.
Just go watch it. All right.
Just go watch it.
Take your word for it.
It's a train. It's infinity long.
Can it be infinity long? I feel like that raises questions.
Nah, it's infinity long.
Okay.
I mean, it's called Infinity Train, so it's being a train.
See, what have I done? I did, for better or worse, I read the manga for Redo of a Healer.
That was probably a mistake.
It wasn't the best.
Hashtag big mistakey.
It's because somebody posted a scene of stuff on Reddit from the anime.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, this is real bad. I don't feel like I'm going to watch that now, even though I threatened to during our Hotake episode. I read the manga instead. Literal revenge porn.
So that's good. That's nice.
It's not.
Good that exists.
Yeah, and the anime scene is just straight up hentai, so I don't know why it's being aired like a normal show. It's basically School Days, only worse.
Ooh, how thrilling.
Yeah. But if you want some light revenge and war crimes, then yeah. The only reason the protagonist is not just a straight up villain the whole time is because all the other people, the antagonists, are cartoonishly evil. All of them.
Well, that's nice. That makes these things justified.
No, it doesn't. None of this is good. There are no redeeming qualities to it. So I do not recommend. You would definitely be an Akudama for sure.
It's supposed to be like worse than even Goblin Slayer, and Goblin Slayer is supposed to be pretty bad.
Well, no, the first episode of Goblin Slayer had a scene of certain types of assault. But that was to show, hey, these goblins are really nasty. They're animalistic and we should kill them all. That's why the Goblin Slayer likes to slay goblins, because they're bad.
Slaying them, they're gerblins.
That's it. And that's as bad as Goblin Slayer gets. This thing is that, except what if that was the plot point? All the assault.
That sounds ungood. Sounds like something not worth many people's time.
It's not, but for some reason, it got an anime. Why?
All right.
The world will never know.
The world will never know.
Other than, I guess there are a lot of bitter, angry people in the world that need some kind of release.
That's true. So speaking of questions that will never be answered, what's an Akudama anyway?
What is an Akudama? Shall we talk about Akudama Drive?
We can talk about Akudama Drive.
Right, so this time we decided to watch Akudama Drive, which was one of the most anticipated shows for last season.
Was it really?
Fall, yeah.
What rank was it?
Well, we reviewed it a little early, so I think it ended up like top 10.
Oh, really?
It's pretty anticipated. So what is an Akudama? Akudama literally translates as bad person or villain.
Well, I mean, yeah, more literally, it's ball of evil, which is pretty great.
Evil ball.
Just a whole wad of evil. If you're to wad up evil, you'd have an Akudama.
So you want to give us the elevator pitch for Akudama Drive?
There are Akudamas. They do a heist. They do a steal.
There is a steal.
Some Akudamas do a steal. It's cyberpunk.
Kind of.
Some cyberpunk Akudamas do a steal.
The longer elevator pitch, the escalator pitch, if you will, is there's dystopian Japan, but only southern Japan, because it's only Kansai. And there's some evil villains out there who are just criminals, some worse than others. And if you're a real bad criminal, you're called an Akudama.
For reasons? It was implied that Akudama have like superpowers, but maybe not. I don't know. It's cyberpunk.
Questionable.
You can write it off as they have augmentations, so they never really worry about that too much. But
so several of these Akudamas get contacted to do a heist. Well, originally they save a dude, then they do a heist, and then things go off the rails. Literally. Yeah. There's an audience surrogate character who's just sort of thrown into the whole thing.
I like Swindler a lot, not gonna lie.
There's also a cat for a bit. It's fine, I think.
It's pretty good. It's a fun watch.
Well, it's a collaboration between Studio Pierrot and Tokyo Games. Or 2Q Games. And if you're not familiar with Studio Pierrot, they did Naruto. And a bunch of other just
I mean, they do a bunch
shows.
of stuff. Like, just a bunch of shonen stuff.
Tokyo Ghoul, Bleach, all those things. Boruto, your favorite.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, good old Boruto.
A lot of work went into getting this show out.
Yeah, because it's original, right? Because it's not based on anything.
A manga is coming out, but it's post-anime.
Okay. So it is original, which explains some of the issues, for better or worse, right? Like, it's nice to see like an actual original anime, because so many are based on something like a light novel. But you can see why sometimes, when left to their own accord, they end up with a bunch of half-fleshed out ideas.
If you read the Wikipedia page on all the different characters and what went into creating Akudama Drive, a lot of it reads as, this was built by committee. So it wasn't one person's vision. It was two companies came together and said, let's do a thing. Let's be influenced by Quentin Tarantino and Blade Runner, and we'll come up with some archetype ideas and run with that.
And that's kind of what they did.
And that's exactly what they did. That's the extent of what they did. It's very pretty, though.
Yeah.
I like seeing something that pushes what can be done with the medium, at least visually. And we did get that.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Like, I mean, it's a pretty show.
But as far as plot and characters go...
Yeah. It's a whole bunch of the plot is mostly cyberpunk tropes.
And I feel like the tropes are there mostly for window dressing. They're not really substantive.
Oh, yeah, 100%, right? Like, the biggest issue with sort of the whole project is that it doesn't really ask any questions or do anything. A good way to sort of think of it is this is the fifth element to Blade Runner. Blade Runner does lots of like really interesting things. It's doing a whole lot. Fifth Element, super fun to look at and watch, but the big questions it does not ask.
It has no interest in those.
It's a fun movie. Akudama Drive is to Ghost in the Shell what Fifth Element is to Blade Runner.
I wouldn't go that far because Fifth Element is hilarious and enjoyable to watch. Akudama Drive was frustrating.
I find it quite enjoyable to watch. Once I kind of realized, it's like, oh, this isn't really going to do anything. They're just going to like do a steal and an action. And like, I wouldn't say the plot is predictable, but all of its turns are super predictable. You're like, okay, so now this is going to be this turn. Okay, we're going to do this. Oh, halfway through, things are going to fall apart. Okay, now we're going to do this. So like the beats were very by the book.
Yes.
It never really does anything all that surprising. And I think that is okay.
I ended up giving it a 6. There were just some things
that's probably fair.
I couldn't forgive it for. But it is fun to look at.
I would give it a B-. If you've got a weekend and you want like a cyberpunk action show, you could do a lot worse than Akudama Drive. It ends up being quite watchable.
I could mostly get behind that. If you're not expecting anything, then yeah.
Oh yeah. If you expect an action show, then you're good. You will get there. You will get what you want.
So you want to get into spoiler land and talk about all the problems?
I mean, sure. I mean, again, like, I wouldn't even necessarily say most of them are problems. They just leave a lot at the buffet, right? They took all of the desserts from Cyberpunk, but left all the meat.
I don't know about you, but I don't like buffet meat.
I mean, that's fair, but you know what I mean.
Bad analogy. All right. I think we have to start with the characters.
Yeah, they're all one-dimensional tropes.
All of them. They're all one-dimensional.
As given by their names. Courier's whole motivation is he curries things from point A to point B.
Names. I liked the names. I liked having.
Me too.
These are anonymous people. That's fine.
I love codename trope.
None of them have names. Not even our audience surrogate character, which Wikipedia tells me that the production staff was very careful and very proud of the fact they were very careful about how they constructed her.
No, I thought she was good.
She got better. So she's an ordinary person. I think she works at like the SEAL office, like the literal SEALs people use.
She's a mid-level bureaucrat.
Yeah.
To a low to mid-level bureaucrat.
She just gets swept up in all this nonsense, basically on accident. She tries to return some money. Then she doesn't want to pay for something using that money because the takoyaki stall doesn't take electronic payments because reasons. So she goes to the police station, and then when all the other Akudamas are trying to save Cutthroat, she gets swept up in all of it.
Yep.
And to avoid getting killed, she claims that she also is one of them. Ha. And she's a good liar, which she isn't.
Yeah. Yeah, but she ends up being. That's kind of the funny thing, right? Like, I like that a lot, where it's like her biggest swindles do end up happening. She swindles everybody into believing she's an Akudama.
I mean, the irony of that is not lost on me. But of her swindles, only one of them was on purpose, and that was the last one, which obviously had the most impact.
Well, I mean, the first one was also kind of on purpose, but the one that was most carried out for a purpose was the last one. And, you know, the plot builds to that, and that's when she gets her cool splash screen and all of that. Mm-hmm. So I think she was well done. She's the most realized characters out of any of the characters, except maybe the Kohai executioner. Those are probably the most well-rounded and thought-out characters in the whole show.
I think my only problem with Swindler is I don't feel like with this type of show, she shouldn't exist. Like, you don't need an audience surrogate character when all the other characters are one-dimensional. You know what they are as soon as you see them. Nothing needs explanation. Why do we need an audience surrogate character? I feel like this type of show, you can just be dropped in the action and you can figure it out. You're smart.
Yeah, I agree to some extent, except then you lose a narrative cohesion, because without somebody to grow, you then have really nothing. Because even Courier, who has the most of a character arc out of anybody left, doesn't really have one. He starts being the best courier and ends being the best courier. Like, he doesn't grow from anywhere. The only one who grows from anywhere is Swindler. She's there not just as an audience insert, but as just the main character. She's the only one that has a character arc in the whole thing.
But if you'd taken Swindler out, you would have had more time to play with the other characters and give them a chance to grow off each other.
I doubt that. It's not what the show was ever interested in doing.
I know. I'm just trying to think of ways to make it better, a better show. Not like we're going to get a redo.
You'd have to make it 26 episodes and tear it down and build it back up from the ground up. I think the show succeeds in what it wanted to do for the most part.
Let me give you an example. Like Cowboy Bebop, right? This has a lot in common with Cowboy Bebop. In that first episode of Cowboy Bebop, you sort of get the idea of here's everybody's deal, and you know it right off the bat. You don't need to be explained to for any of them. And yet they all grow off each other. Granted, that is a 26 episode show, and it's Cowboy Bebop. But still, could have done more with them.
I mean, really what you want to compare this to is not... You don't want to compare this to a cyberpunk show. You actually just want to compare it to an action show or an action movie.
Well, you compared it to Trigun when we were chatting about it.
Yeah, which is another one that is sort of in that vein, where Trigun never really... It sometimes flirts with the idea of asking real questions, but it never really does. It's basically just the space western at the end of the day, but it does a really good job of doing that.
So what about Courier?
Courier? He curries. He's got a bike. A fancy bike.
He's stoic, and he has a bike that can do magic, essentially. It's a magic bike.
I mean, it's a super high-tech, crazy bike that nobody else knows how it works.
It has a rail gun that is more of a plasma cannon. Okay, that's fine.
It's called a rail gun, but it's a plasma cannon for sure.
It can fly sometimes.
Nah, it can't fly.
Sometimes it can fly.
No, it shoots cables and pulls itself forward. It never truly flies.
It can also fall from great distances without hurting any of the riders.
Yeah, well, yeah. That's fine.
I guess directed by Peter Jackson. Falling hurts no one.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
He's one-dimensional. He delivers things.
Yeah, they all are. Like any good heist movie, everyone but the main character is a one-dimensional pastiche.
Courier does have the one plot arc or character arc where he starts out just, I'm going to get the job done for money because that's what I'm in it for. But by the end, he's like, I'm in it to deliver because I am a courier and I will see it through. Yeah.
Also, he's got a bit of a thing for Swindler, and that's about it.
Does he? I think he sympathizes with her a bit, which may be a big deal for him, but
not necessarily a romantic thing.
We do get a bit of backstory for him in that very disjointed, out of nowhere dream sequence.
Yeah, he's the only one we get a backstory for. So that's kind of nice.
I guess he had a mom.
No,
Was it his mom?
I don't think that's his mom. No.
You don't think so? Because he seemed very young in that flashback.
Yeah, no, I think she was a Fagin type character. That's how I would read it. I mean, it's dystopia. It's a Fagin. It's not his mom.
Okay. Well, she ends up dead.
She was the courier before he was the courier, but then she died, so now he is the courier.
She got shot in the face. He got shot in the hand. That's as far as we get with that one.
That's it. That's his whole backstory, man.
It was tragic, I guess.
Got it in one.
All right. What about Brawler?
Brawler? He likes to brawl and is an idiot.
He's, of all the characters, he's probably the most one-dimensional.
Oh, for sure. He likes fights. He's like Skeletor.
He does like fights. Loves fights.
He likes fights.
He dies. He's the first to die.
He is the first to die. Spoilers, they do a heist, and then we slowly kill all of them. That's how the show works.
That is how this works.
They do a steal, and then then they drift apart, and then everyone slowly dies.
I mean, the director was heavily influenced by Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah.
So it's not
surprising.
Again,
like, none of this say it's bad. You just know that that's what it's going to do, and it does it. So it's satisfying, and it does it well, but, don't try to get much more out of it than that, because it's all it's interested in doing.
I kind of liked Brawler, even though he was one-dimensional, because at least he knew what he was about.
Yeah, I mean, they're all fairly likable. All 7 of the Akudama who do the steal are all fairly likable, except maybe Doctor, but
and Cutthroat.
Cutthroat, you kind of warm up to, and then they fall through in a good way, right? Like they're like, okay, well maybe he's like kind of understandable. It's like, oh no, he's a crazy, crazy man.
Yeah, let's talk about Cutthroat. So he starts out being the very first heist that they're all contracted to do. Go rescue Cutthroat because he's due to be executed.
because he has a sentence of 946 years because he likes to do a murder.
He likes to do many of the murder.
He loves himself a murder.
So right off the bat, this is episode 1. We're shown that Cutthroat has this ridiculously long sentence, yet he's going to be executed. So there's already a question there. He's sentenced for 900 and some years, right? But he's killed who knows how many people.
A lot of
He
folks.
claims hundreds. So that sentence that he has
seems a little short.
I know of some cases where people have, they're killed multiple times, but they get almost 1,000 years. And this is real life. So I don't know how the justice system in Kansai works.
By murder mostly, as we see.
You're not wrong. I never warmed up to Cutthroat. I was hoping that it would be, okay, this is cyberpunk, so it's somewhat dystopian, if not completely dystopian. And Cutthroat probably is misunderstood somehow. He's being executed unjustly, right? And he loves a murder. He is freed. We find out that he's called Cutthroat because he actually just beheads people because he's nuts. I thought that it was going to be, well, he'll see the error of his ways or something, and he'll become an asset. But that never materialized. It was just, he just goes crazier.
Yep. He glomps onto Swindler early, and you're like, okay, well, maybe this relationship will help temper him, and he'll learn like empathy and humanity. It's like, oh, no.
I think they went off the rails with Cutthroat as soon as they gave him the thing where he would just talk about how he loves the color red. Like he was obsessed. He'd push buttons if they were red. He'd go off script if something was red. Even for a one-dimensional character, this is more one-dimensional. Like now you're half a dimension. I don't know what you're doing here.
No, that's fair.
Plus he's just gross. Kills too many people. Don't like it.
Kills a lot of people. You heard it here, folks. Aniki against killing people.
Yes, we're against murder in this house. Wikipedia does say that the team found Cutthroat very hard to write for.
It shows.
It does show because they just gave up, I guess.
Well, I mean, they had seven characters to make.
True.
Plus 2, so more like 9. So.
All right. What about Haka-san? Hacker.
Oh, Hacker? Oh, I like Hacker. Hacker's good. Hacker's a good boy. Also, a little one-dimensional, of course. He likes to hack because he finds it a challenge and he is bored. He's a bored boy.
It's very
That's
no
it.
game, no life-ish.
Yeah. The end. That's him.
He does become a plot mover in the third act, though, which is nice.
Well, because he's the only one to have reached Kanto. So
yeah,
which is our first of 2 promised lands that we're trying to get. First of like 3 promised lands we're trying to get to.
A lot of promised lands.
Yeah.
Maybe this is Promised Neverland.
Ooh.
Topical humor.
Yeah.
How about Hoodlum?
I like Hoodlum.
Hoodlum had something of a character arc.
He did. Hoodlum's just a punk. He gets kind of roped into this too, because where all the other Akudama have sentences in, the hundreds of years, his was like 4, and he kind of just got caught up in the prison break.
Yeah, he's just some low-level Yakuza guy. But when he gets caught up in it, he saw that Swindler got away with lying about what she is. So he's like, I'm also an Akudama, sentenced to 500 million years. Which Brawler is just like, that's amazing.
Just instantly falls for. And his relationship with Brawler is quite good.
They're bros.
It's very good. They bros.
There's a bromance going there.
There is. It's good. I like it.
But he actually finds, the strength within himself to confront the world instead of just being dragged along, kicking and screaming throughout the whole thing. And then his turn there at the end was quite nice. I wish he had gotten a bit better than what he got.
Yeah.
But... And then we get to Doctor.
Doctor's your femme fatale.
Literally.
Yep. Yeah, that's it. They try to give her a motivation, and it just kind of falls through.
What is her motivation?
She wants to control death. Everyone's deaths. Everyone's life and death. When they find out that the box they were tasked to steal had people in it, because it's cyberpunk, and every box is just assumed to have a person in it. She's like, well, now I got to have the people so I can control death, because I am become death, the destroyer of boobs.
Well put, I guess.
Yeah.
Honestly, as much as I didn't like Cutthroat, I like Doctor even less.
I mean, she's fairly dislikable.
She kills indiscriminately. I know Cutthroat does as well, but he does it because he's crazy. So there is a molecule of understanding of why he kills people.
Yeah.
She does it.
Nah, she just does it.
Because it's a power trip.
Yeah, she just do.
She just straight up evil. Interesting, though, she's voiced by Ogata Megumi, who is Shinji Ikari.
Oh, well, good for her.
And a bunch of other characters, most of which are boys.
Huh. There's a lot of money behind this show, and it shows in a lot of it. It's just they didn't do it put it towards story construction.
Yeah. I mean, that's all the Akudama. But we didn't talk about Doctor's borderline magic, and I don't know how anything about her works.
So there's a lot of stuff that's borderline magic, right? And that's one of the things where I was like, are Akudama like a genetically enhanced thing? Like a cyborg thing? But no, they just have high sentences, because if you just get kind of declared an Akudama by the state. But, so, I mean, the only way to sort of wrap one's head around this is most of the Akudama, in order to be that bad, have to have had some sort of genetic, chemical, or cyber something. In order to last so long as to become such an Akudama. Like, Courier doesn't really seem to have very many magic powers. He's just got his magic bike. But all the others certainly seem to have, like, legit, like, crazy powers.
Brawler is magically invincible and super strong. So they're essentially supervillains. But, and Cutthroat's super fast, but crazy.
Yeah.
The only one that doesn't make sense as a supervillain is Doctor. Because somehow she gets her head almost decapitated. She gets sliced in half. And in both instances, she stitches herself back together in the space of a couple minutes. And she's fine again.
Mm-hmm. It's also implied that she is a bazillion years old.
And at the end, when she gets stabbed in the carotid once by a scalpel, she is in the process of stitching it up, even though she has like a couple minutes to do it. And then she just gets trampled to death. The end.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't think she has a couple minutes to do it. She's got a small amount of time to do it.
Given that she took her torso that was sliced cleanly in half and stitched that back together in like 5 minutes, I think she could do a single artery right quick.
Maybe. Who knows? Evidently not.
It's inconsistent is the problem.
I mean, that's fair.
But she's borderline magic.
Like Jaws, you buy it by the time you get there.
I bought it for most of them, just not her. And I feel like the staff knew that. That's why they gave her that monologue about why she was after those kids.
Yeah.
Whatever. Speaking of those kids.
It's kids in the box, by the way. The box is filled with kids. It's always kids. It's always people.
So we got brother and sister.
They've been made immortal.
Because reasons.
Somehow. They try to explain it and they don't really.
Oh, I kind of got it. I mean, it's cyberpunk and there are tropes. There are things from which to establish your premises on.
The trope is they wanted to make they basically made a giant alchemical circle under brother and then combined all these clones' lives into one life. So every time he dies, it just uses up one of their lives. Yeah, this is basically
Is that how you read that?
Yeah, that's absolutely how that works.
That is not how that works. They essentially genetically engineered both of them through a series of experimentations to essentially be made out of stem cells.
Yeah.
So if they get hurt, they regrow. They can't die. They'll live forever. That's it.
But no, on the backs of all of their twins, right? So it's basically just it's just Full Metal Alchemist. That's how they do it.
Actually, it was more like what was it? Unbroken? Is that the name of that movie? Unbreakable.
Unbreakable.
Yeah, Unbreakable.
Yeah. He's a bit like
We're going to genetically engineer all these kids, and surely one of them has the properties we need. So all we got to do is kill them a bunch of times and find out which ones don't die.
That's fair.
But other than that, they don't really have arcs. They're the MacGuffin.
No. Yeah, they're trying to escape because everybody wants them.
That's it.
And like every cyberpunk story, it's about somebody trying to escape the system entirely.
Yeah.
Hire the Akudama. Somehow they have infinite money. That I don't understand how that works.
They just have money.
Infinite money.
Billions and billions of yen.
But again, it's not really worth worrying
about. That's not super important. The fact is they got the gang together and then kept them together for a bit.
And tried to go to the moon.
They did try to go to the moon because Kanto is not on the moon. Okay, so let's talk about the two worst characters that I think exist in this entire universe. and that is Bunny and Shark.
I love Bunny and Shark.
No, that was the worst use of exposition I've ever seen.
No, I liked it. I was for it.
When I first saw it, I thought, okay, this is going to be, we're going to have this neat thing where there are these propaganda pieces on TV screens and we'll see them occasionally. Cool. But after that, it would be, let's bring up a concept like the Shinkansen. People worship it, right?
Yeah.
So you see people worshiping it. It's got a big rainbow tail. It's very important. It goes to Kanto. It's the only way to get to Kanto, a character says. Cool.
Yeah.
Then there's a dramatic moment, and then we immediately smash cut to these two jackasses explaining the exact same thing again.
I don't think it's a smash cut. I think they're always around a commercial break. I think that's the thing that's not clicking, is I believe that they were always once you came back from the ad break, because they're always near the middle of an episode.
That might be true.
And I think that's something that is lost when you stream it online. But I believe that they're all about halfway through the episode and they're on the back end of the ad break.
Even if that is the case, I think when you do that, it needs to be during or after the credits. It needs to be supplemental material. I don't like it in the middle. It's immersion breaking. It's exposition dump for the sake of an exposition dump. I mean, they could have used that segment more effectively for anything else, like more pure propaganda pieces. But instead, it was, let's explain something that we just brought up.
I agree that they probably could have been more elegantly done, but I really had no problem with them.
Drove me
I thought they
nuts.
were fine. They did what they had intended them to do, which is try and tell you more about the world because they don't have enough time to show it. Or they didn't feel like they had enough time to show it.
I guess we did have some executioners. I guess they existed.
Yeah. No, the executioners were cool.
I liked the idea of the pairs. And I actually liked the reasoning for having the pairs of executioners. Mm-hmm. But the concept of an executioner is still stupid. Didn't like it.
They're Judge Dreads.
They are Judge Dreads with weird laser swords.
Yep. I don't remember the name of the weapon. They're kind of like size.
A little bit, but they essentially function like lightsabers.
Yeah, they do.
You got Master and Pupil at the start. Master and Brawler kill each other. Pupil hates everybody.
Pupil's really the only other one with a real character arc.
She goes from
TBH.
I'm all about justice to I'm all about revenge.
Yep.
But that's it.
Yeah, well, she also realizes that, wait, no, the executioners are also kind of bad. Or at least the head executioner is bad.
Everybody's bad.
Everybody's bad. It's a cyberpunk show. There are no good guys in this show.
You had the boss.
Swindler's the closest we get to a good guy.
The old woman boss for the executioners. I liked her as a concept. Obviously, she's the antagonist of the piece by the end. And of all the characters that needed to die for some kind of catharsis at the end of the show, she didn't.
Yeah, but that's not really how cyberpunk stories are constructed, right? The villain in cyberpunk stories is not a singular entity. It is the system.
It is the system, and she, as presented by the show, is the face of the system.
Yes, but most cyberpunk properties end with the characters escaping or failing to escape, never with the system being overthrown or even a stand-in for the system being defeated.
That's the problem, though.
It's just generally not how cyberpunk shows work.
Well, and that's true, but at the end of Akudama Drive, we're shown that there's a populist revolt. They are storming the police station that she's at. She's on the front steps in front of the crowd. The whole building as a symbol is destroyed, but she is the face of it, is just not seen again. We don't see her killed. And we don't see her like retaking the reins at the end. Like, yeah, those characters escaped, but destroying the system is futile. There was no closure at all. So it hinted at a closure, populist revolt, but then didn't deliver on it other than, hey, we destroyed this building. Like, okay, well, what is the end state? Has the system been destroyed? Has it not? You're just going to leave us without that question being answered?
Well, we don't have any characters left to go back to answer that question. We've run out of characters to check back on by that point.
No, that's not entirely true. You had that little girl that shot Junior.
I suppose.
I mean, we kept cutting back to the police station up until the power gets shut off, even though none of our main characters were there. And we still had Pupil at the police station. We were following her, right? And she had just woke up to, hey, the system's corrupt. But then that's it. There's no closure there. It goes back to, it asks some questions, kind of, sort of, and commits to none of them, so none of them get answered.
Yeah. But I didn't find the ending to lack closure. I think it did what it needed to do.
I mean, for the characters, yes, especially sister and brother. But as far as the world as a whole, no.
Well, yeah, but it does, again, like, it doesn't need to do that.
I feel like it does. If it brings up populist revolt and you've got junior executioner suddenly questioning the system, I feel like you need to address that, or at least point it at, hey, this might come next, instead of just literally cutting to black with the blackout.
I'm not so sure that it does. The show is more character driven than it is world driven. And so long as the characters who longed to escape get to escape or fail to escape, I think that's all you need. And in this case, the characters who sought out to escape did do that. Everybody who sought to escape does get to, either through death or by actually escaping to a promised land.
Yeah. I mean, it did the bare minimum of what I expected, but it set up more than that and didn't deliver on it. That's my point. Speaking of the world, though, what do you think about Kanto?
Kanto. The only thing I didn't like about Kanto is that it lampshades that it's a trope instead of just moving on. The fact that it lampshaded the trope in a show that's already very tropey was, I believe, a big mistake. They should have just let it lie.
In what way?
Well, I mean, they get to Kanto, right? And it's basically just all the people who used to live there uploaded their consciousness to a quantum computer. Sure. But then they point out, oh, they even did something so stupid, dystopian trope as to upload all their consciousness to a computer. It's like, yeah, no, we know. You shouldn't lampshade or point that out, because then you don't do anything interesting by subverting the trope. You're just like, haha, it's so tropey. It's like, yeah, no, it is. This whole show is, and that's fine. But now that you've pointed that out, you ought not have done that. That's just like one line that needed to be cut. If they had just left that out, it would have worked better than when you try to kind of poke fun or lampshade it.
I feel like it would have been better to not show Kanto at all. Because as soon as we got there and they showed, this is Kanto, it's that thing there. You've removed all of the mystery from it. It's like showing the monster, right?
Well, yeah, but you're allowed to do that at the climax, which is what they did.
Which they did, but it's underwhelming. Like, they showed it, and I'm sitting there, especially with all like the buildings floating around. I'm like,
that is the point. The point is that it's underwhelming. I mean, the point of a false promised land is that it is underwhelming when you get there.
Well, yeah, but I mean, just the impact from a story perspective was underwhelming. It could have just been, there was no Kanto. It's always been a computer. And in fact, there are no consciousnesses in that computer either. It's just a system that's been running and no one told it to stop. Could have been anything other than what it was. Because even with everybody in Kanto had uploaded their consciousnesses into this quantum computer, then they had to somehow figure out, okay, what do the immortals have to do with this quantum computer? Well, the quantum computer is failing, I guess. So we have to upload all the data into these two immortal kids. Feels shoehorned. Like, you could have done something else. Like, oh, they're being sent off to Kanto to make new bodies for each of these individual consciousnesses, or build an army or something. No, they're just backup tape drives, essentially.
I mean, yeah. Again, it's using the trope of cyberpunk dystopia having people being things, not people, which it's doing well here by saying, no, we made these humans, but literally just as disk drives.
True.
I mean, it's executing that trope correctly. It ended up being underwhelming, which is what you want it to do.
You want it underwhelming for the characters. You don't want it underwhelming for the audience as well. Like, you have to break the characters' hope. Like, they've been hoping for this promised land, right? And then they get there and it turns out it's either the same or worse than where they left. That's the trope.
Yeah.
But for the audience to see that, you know, the presentation of that we didn't get. I didn't see anybody's hopes dashed. They were just like, oh, it's that thing instead. Okay.
It could have been executed a little bit better. I mean, it sounds to me like your biggest complaint of the show is that you wished it had been another show, where I just kind of figured that what it was going to do early, and then was just like, okay, well, this is just a ride show. This isn't a question-y show. So I just let it ride, and it's fine.
I don't think it needed to be a completely different show. I think most of the setup...
I mean, half the plot points you've brought up, you say would be better if they were just this other plot point. So, I mean, it sounds to me like it's... I think I wish it were another show. And I get that. There's lots of things that I see that I'm just like, man, I like a lot of the parts here, but I wish that the cohesive was better.
I mean, all of my complaints individually are pretty minor, I feel. They're not huge changes I'm asking for. I'm asking for not one-dimensional characters. I'm asking for it to be more character arc driven against the system, more definition of what that system is and why they can't escape it, or why it's very, very difficult to escape, and a better handling of what Kanto is.
But again, that's not what it's doing.
It's a heist show.
It's an action cyberpunk show. It's a cyberpunk action heist show. And again, like, these aren't bad things to want. It's just something that this show ended up not wanting to do.
It decided to do a Guy Richie film instead.
Yeah. Is that to its detriment? In some ways, yes. In other ways, no. Because I think what it actually sought out to do, it did well. It never really bothers to ask any of these big questions that most cyberpunk properties ask. And that can be a little frustrating. It's like, oh, well, you had a good opportunity to do that, and then you just chose not to. You instead, like you say, they decided to make a Guy Ritchie film instead.
Yeah.
And, it's good at being that, but, a Blade Runner is nice.
Yeah, they decided to use all these cyberpunk trappings, which have implicit questions built into them, and then they ignored them all.
Yeah. No, and that's a legit thing to say. Is the show doing what it set out to do a failing? I mean, I guess you can't really say that, but you can say that they underutilized their trappings.
I think my thesis here is I'm not convinced that they had a solid plan of what they wanted to do from the start.
I would also buy that argument, because I'm not positive they did, because there are definitely times, especially early on, where it's like, does this show think it's smart? Because it's not a smart show. It's just a cool show. And sometimes you're both, but this one isn't both.
I feel like what happened is they all sat down and thought, we want to make a really cool thing. Let's do like a cyberpunk thing. And then they got so caught up in what does the world look like and what will the characters be like, they forgot to give any of that true substance or wrestle with any of it until it was too late. And then they made something that looks very cool. I hope that these two entities, Perot and Tokyo Games, can make something else together. But it's what it says on the tin and nothing more.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So
it feels very much. I mean, even here it says that they worked together. They wanted to make something that was Pulp Fiction-y, Reservoir Dogs-y, and it's like it does all of that while being influenced by Blade Runner and Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah,
I'm fine with it leaning more towards the Pulp Fiction direction, while still recognizing that, man, it would have been nice if they had decided to go the other direction.
Yeah.
And they never really did. They never really leaned into the questions that cyberpunk lends itself.
And they could have just picked one question and sort of leaned into that just a little bit.
Like what is a person? Hey, if you want more on that question, I highly recommend a cool show called Infinity Train. Go watch that one.
Full circle.
Or like a loop, like an 8 thing. But yeah, again, all this kind of adds up to being like a C+, B- type show, where it's like, it's definitely better than your average action show, but it doesn't do anything particularly deep, just something cool. I would be interested in the manga, where the manga might have more time to do some stuff, so it might be interesting.
Could be. Well, I think it's about all we have to say about that. What do you want to watch next time?
Well, I had wanted to watch more Kaguya-sama Love is War, but you wanted to watch something bad, so I think we're going to watch Rent-A-Girlfriend.
The options were watch something romantic or watch something romantic that's also bad, potentially.
Yeah.
So we decided to watch Rent-A-Girlfriend.
I think it's not going to be great, TBH.
I tend to agree.
But, you know, all of the anime Twitters tends to be all a Twitter about it, so they're promoting it. So maybe it's not trash. Oh, it's going to be trash.
I don't know. I will go into it when I start it with an open mind, although I have a feeling that it won't be open for very long.
Yeah. I think it's going to be pretty weak.
But we'll see.
We can see where it lands.
All right.
Bye forever.
Okay, bye.